Welcome to another episode of Reptile Fight Club. I'm your host, Justin Julander, and here he is in the flesh. Well, for me anyway, I can see him, Chuck Boland.
Yes, thankfully I'm wearing my flesh today.
Yeah. It's weird when he takes off his flesh and he's all
fleshless is not a good look.
Bone and muscle. It's creepy, but
yeah, it's Eau de Natural.
Okay, that was a great intro. Huh?
That was a horrible intro.
Good way to come in.
Yeah.
I'm a little out of it. Sorry. Yeah, it was I couldn't sleep in this morning and took my wife in for a quick surgery this afternoon, and so we're running a little bit behind schedule. So I'm not maybe firing on all cylinders. And
Justin is Eau de Unnatural.
Yeah, what a great wife. I mean, you've heard my wife on the show if you've listened to previous episodes. She's a great woman. She's like, go record your podcast. I'm like, okay. So she wants the show to go
so
on.
you scheduled a podcast when your wife had a surgery?
Oh yeah, rub it in, dude.
What kind of a husband are you?
Oh man.
She must be a wonderful woman to put up with that
She
crap.
definitely is. Yeah, I'm a terrible person, but what do you do? All right, and today we're joined by Myles Pickett. Thanks for being here, Myles, and we're excited to get your topic on fight about it. So thanks for coming on. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on in the reptile world. I guess a lot of people going to Daytona last weekend. That looked like a good time. Looked like I think Bob put in one of the more complete carpet python books for auction.
Somebody's walking around with your book.
Yeah. They sent pictures of everybody checking it out. I'm like, where'd they get that? But I should have figured Bob had one, and it's his show, so why wouldn't they have one in there in the auction? But yeah, somebody's got it.
Looks like a good time at Daytona. Sounded like it was a good show.
Yeah,
saw lots of people posting pictures and.
Yeah, would have been fun to go. I mean, there are a lot of cool people there. Keith McPeak, Jordan Parrott had a booth.
Jordan was there,
cool. Yeah, it would have been. Looked like a really good show.
Yeah.
I think the Herpetoculture Network guys put out a podcast.
I saw that.
Recapping. Or they were live just a couple hours ago. So
I saw that it was like a live from or live.
Yeah, now you'll know how this is.
I don't know how that
now you know this is recorded because you'll hear it in a couple weeks. You'll be like, that was 2 weeks ago, dude.
Well, and I think our last podcast, we had a couple of episodes and they got flipped. So this will be even down the road because there
you go.
We had
Zach,
oh my gosh, Dr. Zach on. So it's that was So anybody who hears that out of order, yes, you are not imagining things.
Yeah, you're gonna hear us talk about Zach like it was the
things that hadn't happened yet. But
I forgot to specify which one needed to be released first. But what do you do?
That's our fault for not numbering our episodes.
There you go.
But we figure we probably ought to get 100 in before we start numbering, especially because
nobody's gonna care.
NPR's got 500 on us.
500.
That's crazy.
It's a lot. We're not even to 100 yet, are we? I don't know. I've lost track. Like I lost count.
We're wee little Lucases compared to that.
When was our year? Was that in May?
It was in May. Yeah, it was in May.
And now we're already August. That's crazy.
I know, right?
Like time just doesn't slow down, does it?
No, it does not. Especially when you get old.
Faster when you're old.
Your
guys like us.
children grow faster and you age more, and yes, time speeds up.
Yeah. How old are you, Myles?
I'm let me count. 33.
33. Okay.
Nice.
So we got you by a few years.
Yeah.
And am I older than you, Chuck? Or you?
I am.
I'm 47. So I'm.
Oh yeah, you're older than me.
Yeah, I'm way older.
I'll be 40. I'll be 46 in September.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Only a year, right? So.
Yeah, and not by much.
Year and a half. Yeah. Year and a half. You're senior.
I mean, I look a lot younger than you, but I'm not. I'm not that much younger than you.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I mean, you're better look. You're probably better looking though. That's there. Is that good? I feel like I piled on between bagging you out because your commitments to the show.
You're coming at me hard today.
Yeah. And we got a guest on, man. I'm not gonna get my one-on-one time beating up the doctor. So
we can beat everybody up today. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's free for all.
What are those free for alls? Yeah.
Battle Royale.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I've seen a few friends on Facebook, and I'm like, man, there's some people looking old out there.
Yeah.
But others, you look at them, you're like, man, they look exactly the same as they did in high school, or look better. It's crazy.
Yeah, so, I feel like for a long time I held my age, but I'm starting to feel old now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like
wrinkles under the eyes and
getting the
gray
waddle, the waddle.
Gray crow's feet. When I get my when the hairstylist fades me up, dude, it's just nothing but gray hair on the freaking smock. Yeah. I'm like, thanks.
At least you have hair to cut, man. I balded at 18.
And you know what? Man. That's exactly what my my hairstylist says, because I'm like, oh, my hair is too thick, blah blah blah. She's like, shut up, dude. Exactly. You have hair which men your age would kill for, and I'm like, true that. You're right. Good point. I'm not being a good person right now. Shut the fuck up. Yep.
Yeah, my girlfriend of 12 years is Eastern European in descent. So her hairline, she has a three head. You know what I'm saying? And she complains about it. I'm like, don't complain.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife has really good hair, really thick hair. Mine's pretty thin. I might as well be bald in some, but yeah, it's pretty thin on top. But I don't know. I can't complain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Enough about hair.
Yeah. But yeah, Daytona looked fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
Was there again the THN
THB?
Yeah.
THN.
The Herpetoculture Network.
THN.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Schmitty and Phil had the boa, old school boa guy. What's his name again? Pete Call.
Pete Call. Man, that was an awesome episode.
That was crazy. I'm like, I don't think I could have handled the good old days, man. That guy is.
I kind of liked it, man. I'm a punk rocker, bro.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that share that. I'm kind of a nerdy prude or something, but I'm like, oh man, I would not have fit in well.
Oh, hey, we're recording over here. I don't care.
No. They're in the Pete Call, I guess. They like the Pete Call scene.
Don't talk about my party buddy, Pete.
Yeah, they didn't like that disrespect.
Yeah, that's right. It was my bad there. I shouldn't have riled up the dogs by saying Pete Call wasn't my speed, I guess. But yeah, it was really interesting to hear all the stories. Like,
Justin
I don't know,
likes
man.
Pete Call, dude. Chill out. God.
But it was interesting to hear. Yeah, he's got a little bit of a limited vocabulary.
I'd say his vocabulary is pretty profound.
Yeah. I believe the word was profane, but yes.
There you go.
Yes. You really reminded me of the dude, though. I thought, I kept thinking Big Lebowski the whole time I was listening.
Having a big sweater on. And
Jeffrey.
Man. Jeffrey Lebowski.
It was good. But yeah, I enjoyed listening to it anyway. Yeah.
You do not have the vocabulary of a sailor, Justin. You do not.
I unfortunately do, and I apologize if it gets a little too seaworthy.
That's all right. That's all right.
You're in good company with Chuck. He's a seaworthy fellow as well.
Yep. I am a line handler, and I'm untying the boat now. It's fine. We're good, dude. We're
good. There was some comment about, profanity is a sign of intelligence, and I just commented, then I must be really dumb.
No, I saw that recently because it kind of flipped, because back in the day it was like,
oh yeah,
especially with stand-up comedy, which I'm really big into. You hear, they're using a lot of cuss words. They must not be, kind of practicing their skill.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I cuss like a sailor, and I can't apologize for it. It's just the way I talk.
Yeah. That's
it's definitely not
how
personal.
You're raised, I suppose.
Yeah, my daddy was provocative to say the least.
Yeah, we got shocked when my dad would throw out a damn here and there, every few years. You'd hear a damn like, "Whoa, Dad must be really pissed."
I'd be shocked.
We used to make fun of my mom because she would never cuss, but we'd be in the car and she'd pull out in front of somebody and almost get us creamed, and she'd be like, "Oh, shoot, damn it!" And it's just hilarious, just hilarious when she would do it.
And,
I think my mother's given My mother's given name for me was "You Little Shit."
Well, I mean, it's just funny because my her son went on to be a professional cuss word performer. So it's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, what do you do?
Sorry, I'm making Justin uncomfortable.
Oh no!
I apologize, Doc.
I got in deep when I went to Australia, and those guys have no filter.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
The Aussies or
the Aussies, yeah.
Okay. Because you went with
the C word is like a nice little compliment.
Yeah, that's
you call somebody that.
That's one of my favorite 4-letter words, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you get in trouble over here though. Too much.
Yeah.
That's
I think there's also two different levels of they're not the same.
My buddy Chris Cupper, he was talking to a bartender. You know, he'd knock back a few, I think he said, and he's like, you're just a mad, C. And she's like, excuse me, you're out of here, you're done here. Like kicked him out. He's like, no, I'm from Australia. It means something different. I don't care. Get out. Like she was not having it. So. Yeah,
I wouldn't cross that threshold.
Yeah, you gotta be careful around here with that one. Although
it's
in
better
Australia,
to use the word.
Like
you got to use the word chook in America. You don't want to
chookin', huh?
Yeah, chook. Like chooks are chickens. You're a crazy chicken, right? Isn't that right? A chook?
I don't know. That must be some West Coast talk.
Yeah, it's not German, but I think I can see the connection there. Yeah.
Now you've got some German connection, don't you, Yolanda?
Yeah, I speak German. I lived in Berlin for a couple years, so yeah.
Oh, that's very
Ich bin ein Berliner.
Yeah, you're a pastry of some sort.
I am a pastry. I am a donut.
I'd love to go to the fatherland sometime, but
I might be back there next year. We've got a conference in France, like in the east of France, and so I might head over at least to Switzerland, go to somewhere German speaking if I can.
I'd love to take a bicycle trip through Belgium and just hit the abbeys and monasteries and check out the German brews. And
I was gonna say, will you be drinking beer on a bicycle? Because that's the only way I can see you doing it.
Yes.
Ein, zwei, gesufa.
Yes, singing, splashing beer, like it would have to be like
giant
that.
steins.
Yes, all the boot.
Yes,
all of that.
Yes,
all of that.
Oh, I'm down.
Well, the MP guys had Bill Stagel back on, so it was good to hear that one.
That was a good
I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah,
I pretty much have turned into a fucking Mac and Wookiee, and I don't listen to podcasts anymore. Apparently, I'm all Wookieed out.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I'm wiped. I worked a 12-hour day on Monday, or a 14-hour day on Monday. I worked a 12-hour day yesterday, and at least 4 of those hours combined were Reptile Fight Club and the Colubrid and Colubroid radio.
All right.
Nice. Not a bad
There's
way
our
to
listener. We found
a lot of time working.
And unfortunately, I don't mean to sound nerdy or fandom, but there were some repeats.
Nice.
Yeah. Hey, I do that all the time. I miss a lot on the first pass, so let's see, what was I gonna say? I blinked out. What do you do? What do you do for? What do you for work?
So I work at a science museum, the Museum of Discovery in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Nice.
Cool.
I am facilities and exhibits. So you have a few hundred kids run through a 40,000 square foot space, and you need somebody to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
So
nice.
The 14-hour day on Monday was. We packed up a couple of 26-foot box trucks full of a Arkansas Diamonds exhibit and hand-loaded it into the front entrance of a library up in the hills of northern Arkansas in BFE, to be honest. But it's part of our outreach, trying to provide some of that education to some of the lacking communities. They give us a little kickback in funds so we can provide that for them annually.
Cool.
And I think it's a great resource for them. We have an AZA accredited animal room with some all right reptiles. You know, I'm not. I'm kind of niche in what I like as far as animals are concerned, and we have some mammals which I absolutely can't stand.
Are they all natives or like exotics?
No,
as well?
So we have a game and fish museum right behind us, and they kind of take care of most of that. We do have 2 opossums. Well, one of them just died from cancer. Apparently, they only live for a few years, which I had not known.
That's a common thing. Like they get cancer and they have all tumors and stuff, right?
But I'll tell you, what a disgusting animal.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Just the smell of mammals, you know, like why not just get a snake, you know, just be done with it. But no, we have you know, snakes and lizards and arachnids and mammals, and it's pretty cool, you know. But right now we're dealing with a FDA and USDA situation where we're trying to get some insects that are potentially invasive to our state. And they've given us an outline, a list of things that we have to do preliminarily to be able to accept these. Yeah. And it's, you know, a specific gauge mesh on all of the exit and entrance HVAC system ducting. And it's, you know, oh, this little pipe, this conduit that's coming through the wall, well, you better seal around that. And it's become kind of a mess. But, I mean, hey, you know, if it gets us to be able to show kids and families some of these things that they haven't been able to see before, then hey, you know, it's worth it.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah,
that sounds like a fun job. Do you get to like do tours or not necessarily on that side?
So we have a traveling exhibits technician that I assist because of my history in like trade shows and also exhibit installation.
Okay.
I worked in exhibit and trade show for probably 5 or 6 years before this, which I've been at this current job for, this year will be 9 years in August. Okay. This past August. So I've been in the museum world for quite a while. We're actually going up to Philadelphia this weekend to check out a $1.5 million climber installation that we're going to be getting later on this year before Thanksgiving.
And when you say climber, this is like a rock climbing thing, or
no? It's more like a kind of an interactive, abstract, artistic kind of get a bunch of 5 to 10-year-olds in this climbing structure that has a lot of different multicolored acrylic opaque pieces, and you have like that multi-ply like Russian birch kind of accents and lights and stuff like that. And it's going to take place of this thing we call the whoosh, which we have 3 large 240 volt squirrel cage fans that run through 5-inch ducting, flexible ducting, where you take these like juggling scarves, you put them in different little holes within this ducting, and you have flapper valves where you can adjust which point they're going to eject from. And the 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds, they just, I mean, they go.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sick for kids.
That's
age,
cool.
Yeah, so that's mostly our target audience is pretty much 16 and under. And
nice.
Hey, it's fun. I don't like kids, and it's the best birth control you can ever have is working at a children's museum. But you know, there's definitely highlights to it, and they treat us good. And hey, you know, I get to build stuff and experiment with different substrates and materials, and it's a fun time.
That's awesome. Cool. All right, so Myles, you're from Arkansas. You work at the museum. Where do you fit in with herpetoculture?
So I took quite a break. I've probably been 3 or 4 years now. I've been really kind of deep diving into different species. I've kind of found my niche and really appreciating desert species, desert creatures.
Cool.
The survival, the ingenuity, and the endurance it takes to live in the most inhospitable places on Earth is something that I really respect.
Yeah. That's cool. That's same feeling on that. That's awesome.
I can tell you I could piss a lot of people off by saying that I absolutely detest ball pythons and the whole culture that revolves around them in the common trade. of herpetoculture.
Yeah.
I did get my start a few years back with breeding crested geckos, not because I necessarily really liked the biogeography or the natural history behind them, but because I heard that they were easy to keep and easy to breed. So I haven't really bred crested geckos. I threw some in the cage and they bred themselves.
Yeah,
And I'm slowly starting to kind of pawn off what's left of those. I have maybe five or six left that I'm slowly getting rid of. I have a Patherophis williamsi, Gulf hammock rat snake, who is an absolute psycho.
My favorite.
Oh man, he is just so tuned in, so visually acute to everything that is going on, and absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. I'd never seen him before in the trade or the hobby, and I thought, hey,
where do they occur naturally?
In the Gulf hammock area of Florida. It's an intergrade zone, a natural intergrade zone between what I believe is the gray rat snake and either the Everglades or the yellow rat snake. So they have these different colors of caramel and brown and tan, and just really beautiful. It kind of produces this different saddle pattern.
Oh my god!
It's so much different than what you would think of as just a regular phenotype rat snake.
Hey, stop.
But they're really pretty, and I'd never seen them before for sale.
I'll tell him he doesn't.
A local pet shop had one for like $100, so I was like, yeah, I better get that. And then I have the super dwarf Bredli that I purchased from the dock, and they're doing absolutely wonderfully.
Cool.
Put on quite a bit of size. I will say the female is extremely cage defensive for some reason or another. I don't know what happened. She was super cool, and then all of a sudden she just changed and like tagged me like 2 times in like 2 seconds. Really? I was like, okay. So target training it is. Okay. No, I'm trying to kind of switch over my room to specifically desert species. I have a dehumidifier running right now, and in Arkansas, if you haven't been here, which I doubt you have, it is the Vietnam of North America. And it is so bad. I mean, throw a wet towel on your face and heat it to 100, and you're here, baby.
Yeah.
That's completely foreign. I'm in the desert region that you speak of. I'm kind of the high elevation desert here up in northern Utah, but then down south, you get into the Red Rocks and the canyons and stuff. But
we're actually
humidity is a foreign thing to me.
We get rid of maybe 3 to 4 gallons of water a day out of our household air from a dehumidifier.
3 to 4 gallons.
Yes, absolutely. Now, granted, I live in an old house that's Swiss cheese, and I live in a 1970s HVAC system, so there is a caveat to that. But sure. It's
that's crazy though, man.
It's a temperate jungle here.
Man, you might need to move if you're into desert stuff.
That's what I've been telling my girl, man. I've like, I spent quite a bit of time in Arizona, and that's kind of my dream. The first time I really got back into herps after I got off the road, I used to be a vagrant, a train hopper and a hitchhiker, and I was homeless for most of my teenage years on all kinds of substances that you shouldn't be talking about. And I got cleaned up by a medicine man of the Pasquayaki tribe in southern Arizona, about 15 miles out of Tucson. He had a 15-acre ranch. Got me sobered up, and anyways, I was working on one of his old Ford pickups, and I looked over to the side, and I saw this 2.5 foot long Gila monster, this lava orange and pinkish kind of striping, just walking along the sand, amongst the mesquite trees and the jumping cactus. And I was like, oh shit, So I go running up to it, and I'm like, a foot away from it, and he just does not care. He's like got all the confidence in the world, and it hit me, and that was maybe 10 or 11 years ago, 12 years ago, I should say. And it kind of re-sparked, that interest in reptiles for me. My first reptile was a blue-tongued skink when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. It died after about 25 years old.
Oh wow.
And I haven't really kept much, being, living out of a backpack for years, and then just kind of like focusing on work and so now I'm slowly starting to transition back into pushing away these more tropical species and trying to get like a desert specific room together.
Nice. Hey, those connections, that's like, those are formative things, when you can make that connection. I still have these just images that are ingrained into my brain of, first interactions with certain reptiles in the wild, and, to see a Gila monster like that, in that setting where you're, cleaning up and stuff like that. That's pretty impactful.
That's pretty awesome.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah. I do have another great one. We had tack shacks. We were on a ranch, a working ranch, and I took care of the horses. It was 5:30 in the morning. You get up, you fill the water trough, you throw out the alfalfa, and you brush down the horses and get the saddles ready. And I go into the tack shack where we keep all the saddles and stuff. And being a medicine man, he had TP canvases and stuff rolled up in the corner. I needed to pull those out and get them cleaned. Lifted up 5 baby diamondbacks, scurry out, and I start tap dancing, like backwards out of the place, and it should have freaked me out, and it did at first, but at the same time, it was that that appreciation just grew so much more. It was a little heart-wrenching when I went and told Indio, is the medicine man's name, hey, this happened. He's like, well, go grab a shovel. I was like, oh yeah, I guess they went away. I couldn't find them. It is what it is.
Yeah, but, that's the downside, I guess, of being interested in reptiles. You tell somebody you like them, and they tell you about the time they killed one, or
I can't. Man, living down in Arkansas.
Oh yeah.
And it irritates me so much because I live kind of in BFE. I live about 8 miles down an old highway. The instructions that I give people is, hey, take the exit where the ammunition factory is. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm a gun fan. I
was gonna say, you got an ammunition factory?
Yeah, Remington Arms.
Oh,
Remington
okay.
Arms.
Okay.
Yeah. But and I love. Hey, don't get me wrong, I'll go shoot some shit.
But, me too, man. Me too.
Hey,
me too,
brother. You're Southern California, so you might as well be Arkansas.
Certain areas down there.
Yeah, fair enough. That is true.
Yeah. You go away from the coast, you get.
Yeah. East County is.
Hey, y'all vote red. I know it.
Definitely Southern California is way redder than the rest of the whole state.
Absolutely. So. I don't vote for anything because I think it's all a scam. But
I agree with you there. Yeah. Well, cool.
All right. Well, that's awesome. That's cool. When we were staying in Arizona at the Airbnb, we went out, of course, flipping any boards that were in the yard, and there was a big. It was kind of a younger diamondback, beautiful western diamondback, just coiled up under this board.
They get big at an early age down there, man, because the prairie dogs are so prolific. They have an excellent food source, and those prairie dogs being, digging down and living underground. I mean, co-opting a burrow is food for months.
Yeah, I don't want to rub it in much, but I'll probably when this airs, I'll be herping Arizona. So
hey, I'm actually
make another trip down there.
Are you going now?
Yeah.
Seriously?
What time?
2 weeks, I think.
Oh, is this a Rob and Eric trip, or what's the?
No, it's just a Justin, and actually Steve's gonna go.
What?
Yeah. You want to drive over and meet us out there?
What the hell?
You'd probably ride with Steve.
Say anything.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. Like I'm pretty sure I told you about it. Like I booked.
I'm pretty sure you
down there.
Did not.
Right. Well,
what part of Arizona are you going to, Justin?
Tucson. Yeah, southern, like the Huachucas.
So beautiful, like man.
Oh yeah.
That's Sonoran Desert. It's just.
I realized I had some unused like I had a refund of a ticket from Delta, and so I needed to use those up before they expired, and I kept forgetting them. So I'm like, it's raining down there. It's monsoon. I'm going back because Dustin kept posting pictures of all this stuff he was finding.
He's been going. I mean,
I know,
I don't know. He's just going hard in the paint, man. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm gonna let you all know how little you are.
Yeah.
In this field herp game.
Dustin is gonna pick me up at the airport, and we're gonna meet up with Steve and go herp around. So we'll kind of play it by ear a little bit, but I think we're gonna stick around the Huachucas and go over to.
Are you guys camping it, or are you Airbnb?
Yeah, we're roughing it. We're not doing a rob trip this time, so we're just gonna camp in tents and stuff.
How dare you, sir? You did not tell me.
You got time, man. You got time.
What are the dates?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll text you. Yeah.
We'll talk offline. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be great. Get the band back together.
Dude.
Yeah.
I feel slighted. All right.
Sorry,
anyway.
Man.
Yeah. No.
I was surprised he was able to cut. I'm really excited he's coming. I was a little surprised he was able to do it. So yeah, that was cool.
I need him.
And he's from Phoenix he's from Phoenix area. So I think his parents still live up there, so he's got home base down there. So yeah, it should be fun. But yeah, I got a couple targets I haven't seen yet, so I want to see a tiger rattlesnake, and Dustin's been finding 20 of them a week or something down there. So I think the chances are all right, but we're also gonna try for the find a twin spot. I need a picture of a twin spot. Yep, that's one of the remaining. That's the remaining high elevation rattlesnakes, at least in Arizona, I think, that we need to see. So, yeah, but I don't think Dustin's seen one either. So, yeah, if we can find one of those, that'll be a tick.
Can't believe you didn't think to bring the Chuck Mojo with you. Like, what the hell?
I know.
What the
Disrespect.
hell? Disrespect.
I just thought you'd ghost me. You
what the hell, dude? So you're like, yeah, we won't even invite him.
Damn. Double disrespect.
Jeez. I'm sorry.
All right. I've been hard on him about his wife and all kinds of business today.
I'm apologizing.
Now I feel like
instigating.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. He deserves it. He deserves every.
I'm trying to get y'all fighting against each other, so I get it easy.
I felt bad. I was giving him a hard time. Then to come find out, I have every reason to.
No, I slightly
ridiculous.
I do feel a little horrible when you sent me that text just now. I was like, oh man, shit. What did I say? Like, it was one of those things where I was like, I really don't want to cancel because I don't get a lot of options to talk to people who are interested in reptiles, other than showing me a picture of one laying dead across their fucking tailgate, So I'm happy.
Well, you're here now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's fight. So the topic. So Myles picked this topic and brought it to our attention. So we invited him to come on the show and fight it out with us. So, so we're going to talk about reptile shows, if they're effective at their purpose, or kind of the pros and cons, I guess, of what maybe they're lacking or issues that might have with reptile expos. So timely thing, there's lots of good expos going on, so we can discuss some of those things, and we'll go ahead and flip the coin between Chuck and I, see who gets to fight you, Myles. All right, you want to call it there, Chuck?
That's heads.
It is not, it is tails, man. You're losing your edge. You're losing it.
Apparently so.
Yeah. Well, I want to do this one, but I'm thinking maybe I might go check on my wife once in a while and kind of ditch out. So, and I'm not thinking straight, as you guys can tell, and I've pissed Chuck off, so maybe he's riled up. Maybe I'll let you take this one, Chuck, if that's all right. You good for that?
You're the winner. You decide.
I get
to
call
me.
It. All right. Okay, and then Myles, if you want to call it, and we'll see which side you get to pick.
I'll go tails.
And it is heads. So Chuck gets to pick. Yeah, you want the kind of pro reptile expos are awesome?
Yeah, I'll do the pro side of it.
Okay.
I'll do the pro side of it.
Excellent.
All right. Sounds like a plan. So and then I assume you're
I will defer. So
you're
Myles,
deferring. Yeah,
why don't you walk us out of the gate?
We call that getting chucked. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I have about 16 or 17 points for either. So
all right,
nice.
I'll
coming prepared.
I'm definitely not going to try to explain all of those in my
no, never in
argument.
the opening salvo. Yeah, never in the opening salvo.
But I'll start with some of the main aspects that I find. I don't know. Again, I'm coming in kind of late in life, back into the reptile scene, and I'm seeing things from kind of a filtered lens.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we like that kind of different, perspective, because there's all sorts of different perspectives. So yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and you kind of have the East Coast, like upper, like New England area. You have the West Coast. You have Texas, and you have Florida, and then there's not really anything in between. And that's in a way, that's kind of one of the cons of expos, is that there's not enough in the areas that are lacking that kind of herpetoculture infrastructure, so to speak. I wish there was some type of outlet personally, physically, that I could kind of unleash, my interest in the hobby, and it's lacking here. We do have a couple of reptile shows that are close by, but they're very small, and I noticed that even in seeing videos of other reptile shows farther away, that it ends up kind of being the ball python and crested gecko and bearded dragon experience. There's not a whole hell of a lot of diversity in species. And I'd say that's one of the main cons. Another main con is to kind of pull on the animal rights side of things, to play the devil's advocate, is stress to the animals. I mean, if we talk about what do you do when you receive an animal? Put it in its closure. Don't mess with it for 2 weeks. Well, we say that to people if we're going to mail an animal to them, and it's been in a rack or it's been in an enclosure by itself. Yet we're going to bring it out to the public in this tiny, clear, completely translucent box from all sides, for all of these people who are, let's be honest, a lot of people that come to reptile expos are going to be not necessarily hands-on, but kind of, in their faces, let's say. So, there is that kind of stress aspect for the animals themselves. I would say cross-contamination is an absolute huge issue with reptile expos. Mites, disease, bacteria, fungi, these are things that maybe less scrupulous breeders or vendors might kind of push away and not necessarily want to talk about or admit to.
Okay, one sec. Let's let Chuck respond to the first couple points there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, first point, I think, with reptile shows being small and lacking. I mean, I hear you. I can see how, it depending upon where you are in the country, how definitely reptile shows could be lacking in certain areas, or maybe certain areas only have, like out in California, we have several shows a year.
Right.
They're all fairly large. And they get fairly good draw from other places. And like you see something like the NARBC or, even, some of the other, other larger shows, they tend to draw people from other places. And I think that's kind of where it's at. And I get, it would be nice if they could do, a lot of shows in smaller places. But I think in lieu of there only being so many kind of reptile breeders in so many areas that are, up to vending shows, it might not be the worst thing to kind of have shows in more concentrated areas in bigger cities. And then, have people travel. I think that's kind of the big thing is, and you know, I see it a lot with a lot of my reptile friends on Facebook, where there's Tinley Park's happening, Daytona's happening, and everybody makes a kind of a, you know, an effort to it, and they go. And you know, I personally like going to reptile shows. One of the reasons is because it's a camaraderie thing. You know, it's the first time I ever met the good doctor here was at NARBC Anaheim, and we met. I met you know, Ben Morel, his co-business owner at the time, and Steve Sharp, who was also part of AAR, and the three of us have kind of been friends ever since. I met, you know, Kerry King from the band Slayer, who was also into carpets there. And, you know, I've every year I go, I meet different people and different characters, and my kind of you know, my repertoire of friends gets bigger. So I guess if you don't, you know, if and it helped because I met Justin and we were friends, and we would go, and then he would know people and I would meet people. And so, you know, I can see how if you didn't know anybody, or like, you know, you're coming from a smaller area that doesn't have a show, then that's kind of tough. You want to be able to have those shows closer to you so it's more comfortable, rather than have to make a trip somewhere where you don't know people, stay, you kind of walk around, you're like, well, I don't, you know, but you know, at the same time, like, if you just go to tables and start talking to people or strike up conversations with people and you meet people, then that's how that kind of stuff starts. And I think, you know, some of that is just putting yourself out there in the community. And there's, you know, there's a lot of nope in the community, but there's also an exorbitant amount of just awesome people. And I think, you know, that the willingness to travel to shows to kind of experience those people is probably the reason why I think, you know, maybe the why I would support the, you know, shows not being in smaller areas is better, because it gets you to get out. It gets, you know, people coming from larger distances and larger areas into one location. And so you get lots of people from different areas that probably wouldn't normally get together at a show. And then all of a sudden they're all there at the show, and you're meeting new people, you're meeting all these, and it just makes for a, you know, a potential mix for a good time, a good friendship. I mean, you know, we were at an Anaheim show and we sat down with the great Casey Lazick one night, and he just told stories about his times in Australia. And it was one of the most amazing nights I've ever had, just listening to Casey Lazick go on and on and on about just the and, you know, guys like Casey, they don't talk about back then, you know what I mean? Because, but to sit down and be able to hear that. If I wouldn't have gone to that show, if I wouldn't have traveled up from, you know, and granted, you know, it's only down in Chula Vista all the way up to Anaheim, which isn't that far, but there are people who are traveling much greater distances. Obviously, Justin comes in from Utah for any of the San Diego shows, or guys come down from Washington State or wherever, you know. So I think that's to the first point. You know, that's kind of where I'm at. If you want to.
Well, the last, I'll just jump in real quick. Yeah. The last Reptilian Nation show, there was a couple of the vendors from up, you know, around Chicago and things like that. Adeline Robinson and a couple others. So, you know, I think some of these, you know, one of the more nationwide or chain shows, whatever you want to call them, that have, you know, shows in different states, it's kind of cool that way, because sometimes the people just do the circuit, you know.
Yeah.
And let me see. So Chicago would be kind of a good example. That's as far as latitudinally speaking, you know, that's about in line with Little Rock, Arkansas, central Arkansas.
How far of a drive would that be for you
to Chicago?
To Chicago.
Oh, that's a day.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes 3 days to get to the West Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the last reptile show that I went to was Repticon Memphis, which is actually in South Haven, Mississippi. That's a 2.5 hour drive for me.
Okay.
Which, you know,
that's not
horrible. That's fine, you know.
Yeah.
And it was great. And let me add the caveat that I am so pro Reptile Expo.
Sure.
I want to play the devil's advocate, and I have the points to make it, and a lot of them are going to be kind of like cringy, animal rights type, points. But I think it's relevant to bring it up because I think a lot of times, we live in an echo chamber, no matter what we do. Mm-hmm. And I do agree that it's great to bring people out. Like I said earlier, before we started airing, I'm a pretty extreme introvert. Unless I get about a beer or two in me, it's hard for me to start opening up. But it's financially, logistically, and strategically hard for people to plan 3 days to get to a point where you're going to be able to see like the epicenter of like herpetoculture and the hobby and people that have the same interests as you. Because not only am I'm into reptiles and stuff like that, but I'm also into kind of a niche thing. Like, to be honest, I could really care less about ball pythons or green tree pythons or any of these jungle things that are super hard to keep. And I like desert creatures, man. And I could definitely make it to like, Southern Carpet Fest in Texas or some of these tri-state area reptile expos. But I feel like maybe my complaint about reptile expos is that there isn't, I guess there's not enough people in the hobby that are really willing to put forth the effort. And I'm one of those people included that don't want to put up the infrastructure needed to facilitate that type of atmosphere in these lacking regions. I would love to be able to go to, and it's definitely feasible for me to go to an NARBC show, which I've never been to. St. Louis does one, like you were saying, and that's just 4 or 5 hours away from me, and I think that would be an absolute great outlet for me to be able to go and communicate with people that are like-minded. But I do think there is definitely a lot of problems that come with some of the expo mentality. I'm a little sheltered, in the sense that some of my information comes from YouTube, which is the only social media that I use. And that's only because I like to watch videos. I would say there is some sensationalism that's involved with expos. And that's a big problem where it becomes, I guess my main issue is why does an expo have to be so contingent on breeder output? And I mean, why can't these be, why can't there be more, I don't know, why is it so profit motivated? We're so capitalist in nature. That if we're not making money from it, if we don't see a profit from it, then it's no good.
I really like that point because there used to be kind of a more element of education at the shows where you'd have like almost a symposium attached to a reptile show, and I think there are still those like the IHS show and things like that where it's just talks, there's no sale of reptiles anymore. And so they used to be, those were joined together, and now they've completely, not completely, but almost entirely severed. And so you either go to a symposium or you go to a reptile show. And it would be really nice if they married those back together a little more. We did have the Gecko Symposium that was at Tinley a few years back, and Nathan Hall put that on. It was really well done because he did the legwork to get people there, get good speakers. Well, I guess I can't say good speakers because I was one of the speakers, but the other speakers were great. No,
toot your own horn, man. Hey,
Yeah. But we did a carpet python symposium at Tinley, like maybe right after the release of the first edition of the carpet book. So, 10, 11 years ago. And, we had Eric Burke speak and Terry Phillip and myself, and like the crowd, and maybe it was, I don't know what I I probably should have done a better job of kind of drumming up, like getting people there and stuff. So the crowd wasn't like it was at the Gecko Symposium. So obviously if you do it right, you can get a nice big crowd there. But, just getting more talks or things at shows and, maybe more broad talks and things. But, we had like the one that Alan Rapace put on, the Herpeton out in San Diego. Yeah, with Philippe de Vogelier and Alan Rapace put that on, and it was a really cool meeting. Like really, again, just wonderful speakers, myself included. No, but yeah, it was a cool symposium for sure. I was just geeking out with all the cool information. But if they had that at every reptile show, just had some kind of symposium where they had speakers, and I guess there is an element of that at a lot of shows these days, but that would be cool to have more scientific, like right at the Utah show we just had, they had like presentations on crocodiles and that kind of thing, and so they'd show crocodiles and talk about them and stuff. So there is still an element of that, but I guess I'm thinking like the old school, like talk about a group of reptiles and their natural history and all that kind of stuff, have a slideshow, that kind of thing. So I don't know.
So to hit on a couple points, you kind of talked about how the cost of traveling is high, which and the distances you got to travel is kind of an issue, and then you kind of touched on how profit motivated and how kind of gross capitalist it all feels, and you're not wrong. You're not wrong, but I think just from if I could speak from a breeder's perspective on that, there is a lot of cost in travel, and you got to pack up potentially hundreds of animals, transport them, get them all set up, take care of them, make sure everybody's good, hotel, gas, all those things that anybody who would travel just for the show. Plus you have to, take care of all your animals, your display booths and everything. And so, unfortunately, some of these breeders, they kind of have to be profit motivated because they're not spending their personal, some of them may have, jobs and then being a breeder is a second, is a second income or a side hobby for them. So, their ability to make a profit at these shows is absolutely critical, or they just don't do the shows, and then the shows don't have vendors, and then when the vendors stop showing up, the promoters stop doing the shows, and then the shows kind of go away. And so they're and I get it. I mean, it's not necessarily like the nicest look, right? It's not like, oh yeah, all these guys care about is making money, and it's like, well, if you got to raise, 150 snakes a year as babies, that costs a lot. I just did a food order for a lot of the animals that I have, and I'm already probably more than halfway through that food order, and I'm going to have to order more. And that the when I sit there and think about the money that I'm spending, it's kind of like, geez, man, I'm just going through this cash. So I it's hard for me to be tough on at least the breeders who come to these shows, because they do have to shell out a lot of cash. And if people aren't buying what they want, which kind of goes to the diversity issue, is, at some level, professional breeders have to breed what sells. If it is their primary income, they certainly have to be sensitive to that. And I think a lot of breeders, recognize that there's a lot of cool reptiles out there, like Justin always says, and there's so many, but not all of those reptiles are commercially viable. You may have a handful of people who care about a certain species or a certain type of, weird gecko that nobody's ever heard of and is really tough to keep. Or is highly specialized. So, and a lot of those people who come to reptile expos, they're not professional keepers or breeders. That they're pet enthusiasts, and they've got their kids with them. And so, some of that stuff that's on those tables is there because it's being marketed to the right audience. And, if you're lucky enough, and usually you got to search for it. And that, to me, that's part of the fun, is I take the doctor with me and we go running around the show looking at like who has the cool stuff, who's got some cool things, like what's the one or two people who are doing really like different stuff. What are they bringing, and so that's, to me, that's part of the whole appeal, is finding the diversity in the, in the sea of everything else. But to kind of speak to why there's the everything else, is because there kind of needs to be. And those markets around crested geckos and ball pythons and leopard geckos is because, like me, I like giant day geckos. They don't handle very well, so they're probably not a great kid pet. So you can see giant day geckos at the reptile shows, but they're not sold at the same rate as like a leopard gecko is, because a little kid can pick that up and be like, oh, this little cool paint job gecko of mine, I love it so much, it's the best. And if that's what hooks kids in to keeping reptiles and a lifelong passion, then any breeder that I know will 100% do that. One, because it helps them keep their business afloat, and two, it helps inspire that next generation, and whatever it takes to get them hooked.
Yeah, I think there's very few people that say, "Oh, my first pet was a Boelen's python or a white-lipped python," or something. It's usually like 5 species, bearded dragon, boa, ball python, leopard gecko, or crested gecko, and that's mostly what people start out on. And so, but that piques their interest, and if they have a good experience, they'll usually move on to different species and find this huge world of all these different kind of reptiles. And so, I think they just kind of have their pet, and that's good,
And I think the importance of them having a good outcome on their first type of reptile interaction is important. So, docile, bulletproof, pretty, interesting. Maybe that doesn't describe ball pythons to a carpet or a scrub python guy, but certainly somebody whose first snake, they may find that pretty interesting. They may find all the little things that snakes do that, people who are like, yeah, I kept ball pythons, they're rocks, who cares? You know what I mean? But, you're talking about like when Justin and I did the Super Show, we were asking people of all different walks in the show, their experiences, and we got, from breeders to just, general enthusiasts and pet keepers, we got wildly different answers. So it really struck me how different my lens is from somebody who's getting their first ball python or getting their first, leopard gecko or corn snake or whatever. And I had to take a step back, because I feel like I've been doing this long enough that I was like, oh wow, yeah, I'm the old guy. I don't think of myself as the OG, but I guess in this, I'm more of the OG than the new G. You know what I mean?
I do think there is some, I don't know. I think a lot of times we get jaded against certain species because they are common, and we want to think of ourselves as, on the next order up or something, and I've heard, I think it was Barcheck referred to that as the Tinley crowd, like where we get to the point where we're going to attend the Tinley show because there's that diversity, and we don't just want to see crested geckos and ball pythons unless they're the highest, morph in the market or something. But, I think there is something good and kind of back to basics about appreciating a crested gecko. For crying out loud, they were thought to be extinct for a while until somebody went out and rediscovered them and brought them into the pet trade, and now they're the most common gecko you can get, it seems.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, I appreciate a crested gecko because they're so unique and different and weird, and just because they're common doesn't make them less, And I think a lot of times we get that attitude, oh, it's just a common species, or oh, it's just wild caught. But as soon as that import market dries up, everybody's like, I want those and I can't get them now, and so the price goes way up and everybody wants them, and it's like you could have had those all along, but you were just looking for the dollar aspect or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I do feel so. I'm going to say this, and then I'll let Myles jump in do his thing. But it was interesting. And this may be a little like I might get shit for this or whatever, but you know me, I don't give a fuck. So, I just looked at the board of directors for like USARK, and they do the USARK auctions at all the shows now, and it's like, it's great that we're fundraising, but we're not doing, like you said, we're not doing those talks anymore or any, it's all fundraising and it's all business. And if you look at that board of directors, they're all businessmen. They're all, they're all show promoters and businessmen, and which is, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying you can see why we're going towards the, because we need the fundraising for USARK, because we need that legislative muscle out there. And unfortunately, the thing that suffered is kind of the lecture talk on animal, which kind of sucks. But hey, it's good we got people like Repashy out there doing stuff like that, right? Like, so, and just like ball pythons and crested geckos at the show, all things in their place. And we need to be able to fundraise, and we need to have, common entry level pets. We also need to have, less common, more harder to breed things. So all things in their place, all things are good. I'm just pointing out, like, you can see why those things happen now. You can see why and where the focuses come from and how, and how they happen. And that's okay. It's okay, but it is what it is. Okay, sorry. Rant over.
You can respond, Myles.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack in this.
Yeah.
So I guess with the crested gecko, bearded dragon, ball python situation, the biggest thing to unpack for me is it the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken? Are people buying these animals because that's what breeders think is a viable market strategy? Or is it because these are the easy animals to keep? Are these the ones that people need to be keeping first? To be honest, I don't think most people that get totally consumed by a market strategy are really considering what's healthy for the consumer. I think they're thinking, what's going to pay my bills and what is going to make it to where I don't have to bring animals back. And a pretty colored flesh sack like a ball python is going to sell a whole hell of a lot easier than, say, a doo-doo brown baby carpet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Not only that, but to kind of unpack that a little bit more, another really cheap, really pretty, visually important and easy to sell reptile, a reticulated python. And at Repticon Memphis, and I do not mean to denigrate this person or their breeding. I'm not going to say their name or anything like that. They had the best booth. They had some of the prettiest animals, but they were retic morphs. And when you do bring that hobby, when you do bring that herpetoculture kind of atmosphere into a lacking community, these people don't know. They're coming to this show, even if they are involved in social media and stuff, which I'm not. I mean, YouTube is as far as I go. I don't. It's either that or email or phone. But you come into that world and you see these beautiful animals, and it's $100. Well, it's the same cost as this thing, but it looks even prettier. I mean, I think some of these retic morphs are absolutely stunning. And I'm not a morph guy necessarily. I mean, phenotypically, they look beautiful. But and they've got a 12-foot long retic that's sitting in a tub that they're going to take out for $5 for a photo op. And that's a nuanced situation in and of itself. The last one I went to a couple weeks ago, I was with my little brother, who's around 10 years old. I was with my sister, who's in her late 20s, and my niece, her daughter, who was under 10 years old. She took a picture with that 11-foot long retic, and the elation in her eyes and her facial expression, it was just incomprehensible. I mean, just wow. Now she's not afraid of snakes, and that's a pro, sure. But to go to the animal rights side, to play the devil's advocate, man, that big old retic is going to have to sit through 2 days of dealing with, I'm not going to say disrespectful, but possibly unconscientious consumers that want some type of recognition on social media with that picture. And he was totally cool, you know. She had a picture of it. I mean, it totally opened her eyes. It's a pro, you know, but it's a nuanced pro. And seeing these animals and knowing that the demographic that exposition kind of catered to was people that might not necessarily be in these larger metropolitan areas that have multiple shows all the time. You know, they don't know, and a lot of these sellers, they don't want to take animals back home. That's extra cost. That's an extra logistical hassle. And some people, not everybody for sure, but some people, they'd rather just, hey, $200 and it's yours. I'm not going to ask questions. And that's where a little bit of that, I'll bring in a little bit of the, I'm not going to say dishonesty, because A, I don't have the experience on seeing hundreds of reptile shows, and B, I don't know everybody, you know, face to face, heart to heart. But, you know, when everything starts being consumed by capital, you start seeing a little bit of leniency where, well, hey, money talks. Maybe truth and honesty can kind of take a back seat so I can make a buck, or so these people can walk around this show with a
big snake,
you know, a big snake, or just like a yellow ball python, because it seems like there's 100 different morphs of ball python, but they're all just different shades of yellow. Who cares? But they're just walking around, you know, with them in their hand for hours. And it's like, oh yeah, that's good for the animal. Yeah, I can guarantee you that animal's not stressed at all. Sure, you know. But and I saw that, and it really caught me. You know, is these people, they're not being taught by these breeders because hey, they're, and no offense to anybody, but these people are trying to make money. That's why they're there. And again, I understand there's no fault to the person who's coming to that. It's logistically, it's a hassle. It costs money to come there. You want to make your money back. You want to make it worth your while. But I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of one of those people that doesn't really think about money as an importance, and that's why I have credit card debt. You know? But I feel like, you know, if we could just be more philanthropic towards each other and make it more of a community structure to where it's like, I don't know, education and appreciation over market evaluation.
Yeah. I you know what would be cool is if they had a requirement where you have, you know, like when you buy a new washer and it tells you how much you're going to spend, you know, on energy for that washer for the whole year.
Oh God.
I wonder if we had something like that, you know, if you buy this reticulated python, you're going to spend this much money buying rats or rabbits and this much money on a cage. You know, it's going to cost you $500 a year.
I agree with you to an extent.
You will expend 7,000 joules of energy cleaning up this snake's horse shit, this giant poop that it will make when you feed it that $50 pig.
You gotta buy a shovel.
I agree with you, but at the same time, you know, like, customers are unscrupulous. You know, I mean, people are gonna look at something and they're gonna see that phenotype and they're gonna put money towards it. And you know, a morph retic isn't necessarily. You can get a beautiful reticulated python for a couple $100. Now, how much does it cost to get a straight natural type Morelia spilotum at Calfee? 600.
Yeah.
And that's a boring looking snake.
Hey now,
you know,
careful.
I think they're beautiful. That's my dream, to be honest. But to other people, when they see, for some reason, yellow is just like the god color when it comes to reptile morphs and phenotypes. I don't know why. I'm not really a yellow fan. Jungle carpets don't do it for me. I think it's whatever, sorry.
Yeah, I'm a coastal man. I hurt my feelings.
Hey, I like tans and brown. I like doo-doo brown snakes.
I'm a light cider. But I like the jungles.
And I think Bredli are probably one of my favorite species of python, just because of the ingenuity that's involved with just being able to be that species in general. But I don't necessarily like orange.
That thing, the cover of the gammon ranges. Oh my gosh!
Hey, I'll tell you, I just put my pre-order in for the more complete.
Flinders. What did I say? Gammon.
Yeah. Well, gammon's flinders. I mean, they're all they're still similar. Yeah, same
all right,
thing.
So I got to get on here because I got a lot of shit to respond to still.
Go on, I got plenty to respond back.
I know you do. So when you're talking about stress to animals and the potential for diseases that shows, I mean, all those are fair points, and those are things that just happen in the hobby. And I mean, you're not gonna get away from animals enduring stress.
Sure.
Breeding events are stressful. There's inherent stress, and we don't have really, unless we were taking cortisol swabs and sending it off to a lab and getting a baseline cortisol level versus the stress level at a show. We don't know really how stressed these animals are, and I think you have to just accept some of the fact that some of these animals do endure some stress in their life and their pursuit to get to their final home. Disease and mites and things like that in a reptile show, they happen, and every breeder at that reptile show is aware of that, and hopefully they're doing their due diligence to have people use hand sanitizer before they handle anything, that reduce contact with animals, ensure good quarantine protocols when they take their animals back to their collection. All of that is a risk that breeders take on themselves when they go to these things. And unfortunately, consumers are the vector for a lot of this stuff. When they handle one snake that's got something going on, and then they handle another snake, and yeah, you know what, like, that sucks. Like, it does suck, and it's one of like the downsides of the hobby. But I drive to work every day, and in Southern California, you can't get away from that one driver who's got to be an asshole no matter what he does. So no matter what thing you're doing in life, you're going to come across somebody who's kind of being an asshole. And the best thing you can do is be a good defensive driver, or have good protocols, and be diligent about what you're doing to minimize that. You cannot take the risk out of life. Life is risk when you put your pants on.
Absolutely.
So, and then as far as like wholesaling at the end of shows, I can see that from a negative standpoint, where you look at it and say like, oh yeah, these guys don't want to go back with all these animals, so they wholesale the animals. And I mean, on one hand, sure, you could look at that as, yep, they're copping out, they're just getting rid of their animals. But on the other hand, you could say, well, who are they wholesaling those animals to? They're probably bigger pet shops or people who deal in wholesale animals. So it's not like those animals are being thrown away. Those animals are being sold. They're going to help somebody else pay their bills. They're going to help some kid who's in a reptile store who's like, oh, mom, I want this, or oh, what's that? That's the coolest thing ever. So I mean, to me, for breeders, it's a service to wholesale animals, because sometimes pet shops are the ones that have the big draw. I mean, nobody's coming to my house all the time to look at reptiles, because I don't want people in my house looking at reptiles. But if I'm wholesaling to a reptile shop and some kid's coming in and he's getting interested by the carpets that I have wholesaled to them, or that they bought from me wholesale from a show, then that's a win for me. You know what I mean? And of course, you know, you could say, well, you know, they were wholesaled, so they were sold at a low dollar value, and, you know, you never know what happens to them. And yeah, you could do speculative politics about it and say like, yeah, that animal got sold for cheap, so it gets treated for cheap. And we've talked about that. And while I think that can happen, I don't want to assume the predominance of animals like that happen like that. It's not in anybody who sells live animals long-term for a living to treat them horribly, and one, get a name as somebody who's like a flesh peddler, and two, you know, it just doesn't do well if animal sales are your bottom line and you kill all the animals that you get. So I would, to respond to those two, and then to talk about the market leading the consumer versus the consumer leading the market. That's, you know, that's a tough call, man. I feel like the market always has to lead, or the consumer always has to lead the market. And, you know, if all these ball python breeders were doing all these morphs and crested geckos and all these things, and they just weren't selling, and they just weren't, if people weren't into them and that's not what they wanted, then they wouldn't sell. So, you know, whether, you know, it's certainly not such an aggressive marketing strategy that any reptile keeper I know has, as to like convince some little kid what he likes and what he doesn't like. A lot of times they go into pet shops, or, you know, they get a book, you know, they get the complete ball python or whatever, you know, and they're looking through books like that. I don't know a little kid who has the complete ball python. I'm just saying, like, you know, but you get what I'm saying. They see these things, wherever they see them, and then they make those decisions, and maybe they find out they're great or not great. And I totally agree with you. Retic morphs are nuts. They're freaking insane. But, you know, I think that mom and dad at that reptile show seeing an 11-foot retic are like, oh, that's what that is? Oh, yeah, yeah, sweetie, sit down, take a picture, but that's a big nope rope. We're not doing that. No. And so, you know, I hope so. Or they're a parent who's like, you know what? I'm totally into snakes. I have a room, or I have a ginormous enclosure, and I can deal with that. You know, I had I have an employee who was talking to me the other day, and before he shipped off to the Marine Corps, he had a big African rock python that he ended up giving away to a zoo. And it's at this zoo, but, you know, he went through the full gamut of like, oh my gosh, that's what this is. Holy cow, this is more than I thought. And I was like, yeah, that's how it works. And he's like, yeah, it is. And so, you know, and he's like, but I really liked it. So I kept it. And, you know, my parents helped me take care of it, and it was at their house. And when I went to the Marine Corps, I felt bad because it's not that my mom's older, and this thing was huge, and, you know, it was eating rabbits, and like, it's probably not good for my mom to be dealing with this. So we found a good home for it. So, you know, I guess that is to say, not every big snake has a bad outcome. I could see how a big snake wouldn't be appropriate. But again, you know, if you like more, you know, flashy morph mutations and things like that, you know, even the guys that I know at the reptile shop are steering people away from Burmese and retics for little kids. Like nobody, you know, these guys want to sell an animal and they don't want it to come back to them. Like, here, we don't want this. Here you go. So I do think, you know, while you have retic breeders who their job is to breed retics, and that's what they're doing. And if somebody wants a retic, yes, you have to be an informed consumer, and some of that, you know, and then the other part of that is you have people who are just like, that's a huge snake, and I'm a macho dude, and I like that, and I'm going to get it. And you're never going to stop those. You know, those people are grown ass adults. You're never going to stop them. That's how it is. So yeah, yes, I agree. There's like inappropriateness and maybe not always the best look, but again, I'll go back to my traffic example. There's always that guy in traffic, and, you know, you can't get rid of him. So, you know, and then to kind of tie it all together, you know, a lot of it comes off as, this issue of like, well, you're stressing out the snake at these shows. You're, pushing snakes that I'm not sure the market really likes. And you're doing, above all, you're doing it for money. And I guess what I would say to that is, yes, that's all of that is true. But I think it's important that we walk and chew bubble gum, right? You can still sell snakes for money, but do it for the love. You can still love the animal and sell them for money. Because when I sell snakes for money, it's not to make myself rich or to put my kids through college. Trust me, snakes do not do that for me. And I don't think they do that for a lot of people who don't do it professionally. And those people who do it professionally, very few of them are driving Lamborghinis. So I think moreover, all those people, for right or wrong, even the ones who may not be doing it the best, got into it with the best of intentions. I think we can all agree, like the Tiger King, totally crazy guy, totally, has just like, they made him look like a circus, and he did not help himself. But I don't think anybody who watched that said, yeah, when he got into it, I bet he really loved those cats. I bet he really loved what he was doing. But the game got him a little fucked up. And make no mistake, he got fucked up in the game, and it fucked him up. I'm not making excuses for people who, sell half dead imports or things like that. That's wrong. And I'm never going to support that. But, sometimes people lose their way in animals. It's not okay. It's not good, but sometimes people will lose their way in life. And all those people have the best of intentions. It's just things happen in life that I think can send people down bad avenues. And it's easy to point at them and be like, yep, see, that's why we can't have nice things. But, a lot of times there's a bigger story behind that. You don't understand the whole story. You know what I mean? Or there's reasons, or, and I'm not making excuses for anything ill in the hobby, but
there's also a vast majority behind those, guys that are doing it wrong. They're doing it great and doing it right 100%. And exemplary. And to just single out the ones that are doing bad is, but of course that's what the people who are against our hobby will do.
And it's easy to focus on, right? When you see something bad, or, like we were talking about with the PETA HSUS thing, as long as you can sneak a camera into the right place, you can make, a whole community look bad because of one person, right? And that's totally not been my experience with the hobby. I mean, most of the people that I know are great, and they have good intentions and really do great stuff. So it's certainly it's tough, and Myles, I don't disagree with anything that you've said here today. I just think that there's another side to it that's more the side that's my experience. You know what I mean? There's certainly that side to reptile expos, but on a whole, my experience with reptile expos has been a positive thing. And sometimes you got to look for the positive in it because you sometimes see the negative, but on a whole, I can always find it.
Okay. I agree with the majority of what you're saying. It's hard for me to kind of play the devil's advocate, to an extent. However, I guess I can say that the majority of the problems that I see are with the consumer rather than the vendor. However, that kind of brings, if there's a problem with the consumer and the consumer is consuming, then by default, there's a problem with the system, which includes the vendor. So, again, I see so many people walking around an expo with live animals free, on their hands, walking around. And you can tell these animals are, if it's a ball python, it's curling its head into a ball because it's freaked out, because it's like, what the fuck are you doing, holding me on your hand, walking around like I'm some goblet of power, so to speak, and I saw more of that, and it kind of leads me to a point where, expos unfortunately might, there is that starvation in places where I feel like expos need to be more prevalent, but those are also places where, and I don't, for God's sakes, please don't think that I'm trying to bring politics or religion into it, but when you come to the Deep South, there is a respect for humans that is a whole hell of a lot higher than respect for animals. And I'm not saying that's across the board, because it certainly isn't for me, because I can see roadkill on the road and get pretty fucking bummed out. But I can hear about a shooting or something, and it doesn't affect me the same way. And I'm not saying that I'm a cold person towards humanity. I'm just saying that I know we're all a bunch of dumb pieces of shit, and we do stupid things. However, when I see a dead animal, I have to wonder, was there a human that was involved in malice towards that animal? And you know, I'll go down the 8-mile stretch of highway that I have to get to home in the backwoods, and I'll see a run over snake a foot or two off the road, like off the white line of the lane, and it's been run over, and you can see that it was intentionally a big truck or something went out of its way to kill an animal. So there's that lack of respect for anything that isn't human. And when you bring, and again, it's that nuanced situation where I absolutely believe that more of expos and conventions and education and outreach need to be brought to these communities, to my community, to the other surrounding communities. That's absolutely fundamental to being able to kind of bridge the gap between people that are in fear or ignorance of herpetoculture or reptiles in general. But it really sucks to see people who and I think we were talking about it before, you know, it's like you tell somebody about, you know, your interest in reptiles, and they show you a picture of a dead snake or tell you how, oh yeah, I killed a snake, you know. And those people, those are still some of the same people that are going to these expos in these, I'm going to say, herpetoculturally impoverished areas. And those are some of the people that are buying some of these ball pythons because they have some certain shade of yellow, or a retic because they have some certain shade of yellow. And if a retic breeder were to tell its customers that it's going to cost them thousands of dollars to support this animal, they wouldn't be selling or breeding retics. I can guarantee you that, and I saw it firsthand, and I've seen it firsthand more than 2 or 3 times. So I'd have to bounce back against, because, and again.
So what's the answer there? The answer is we.
Well, I don't think there is an answer.
We don't have expos. We don't keep reptiles in our homes, and we make everybody go to a zoo to appreciate nature.
Not at all. I think that our problem as humans is we're. How do I put this in a PG rated way? We're too meek to self-regulate. Do you know what I mean? I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think you can find the example of that, and there's, you know, the world is rife with the ability to find bad examples. But I think if you're looking for the bad example, you will always be able to find it.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm a pessimist. I have to admit, you know, there's no doubt about it. And you know, to make a pro out of the situation, even though I know this is the Fight Club and I shouldn't be doing this, but I'll give a shout out to Cinderella Dragons. This booth, probably a 4-table booth, you know, fairly large booth at a trade show. This guy had tubs with acrylic covers he had UV on his show displays. He had halogen heat on his show displays for baby bearded dragons. Brilliant.
Yeah.
A shining example, I think, in the profession.
And I think those people are out there. They want to be.
Absolutely.
They want to be the message that you know, at a show that they want other people to emulate. And I think that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is, you know, that and you know, I mean, herpetocultures come quite a distance in a fairly short period of time. And I think there is a push towards getting rid of racks and people doing more naturalistic setups and more, more animal centric type things. And I see that more and more. So, while you can find the bad example, the predominance of what I'm seeing is moving towards the positive and more, probably closer towards, dare I say, like AZA type care, rather than the Brian Barczyk ball python rack, kind of way we used to think about things. So I hear what you're saying, and I can guarantee you that there are, some people at reptile expos that, maybe aren't there for the true love of the animal. They're there for the thrill of it, or they just they don't really care. But you can't really control that. And I think the more vast experiences that I've had at reptile shows is they're full of reptile geeks. They're full of people who, new, old, young, they're they like reptiles. And I see, interestingly enough, I see people from all walks of life. I've got a good friend who's a virology professor. I've got, another friend who's a heavy metal guitarist. I've got friends who are doctors and lawyers. And so who emo people, alternative lifestyle people of every, we bring together the fringe of society, for sure, into a place where, and so I can't think of a hobby that's almost more progressive than we are. We do some of the most progressive stuff in this hobby, in how we're inclusive, but yet how we're an outlier. I do, like, I understand the point you're making, and I guess, from being where you're from and seeing what you see, you have a perspective, and your perspective is 100% right. All I'm saying is that I'm not saying I have a bigger perspective or a better perspective, but my perspective is different because, I've seen, a lot more diversity at these shows. Well, I've seen big shows.
I would say both of y'all have a better perspective than what I have, because you do have the experience behind it. Again, I'm not going to proclaim that I have any wisdom on the matter. I can only speak to what I see and what I philosophize.
Yeah.
And
that's cool. And I'm just giving you kind of, from my take. That's, I understand where you're coming from, and you're not wrong. I've seen that. I know what you're talking about. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting here being like, yeah, that doesn't ring with me. I don't know where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from. I think to portray that as how the reptile community is probably a gross misrepresentation. And yes, it's there. Yes, it happens, and I would like to think it happens in the minority, and not the majority.
I would agree with that. I would think that, the only thing that I see that I could kind of push back against with that would be the, I guess you could quote them as pet shops or pet stores that kind of take up massive vendor spaces at expos. And there's a lot of wild caught stuff, and those are the and again, I don't mean to denigrate anybody. It's just from what I've seen, and from what I've seen secondhand as well. You have it's so hard. I think one of the main cons of being at a reptile show for a consumer is it's a lot harder to kind of say no to those impulse buys.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I agree with that.
So
I agree with that.
I can guarantee you, I don't care about tropical species. They're too finicky. For me, something that has to live.
I think they would do so good in your area. They would. They do awesome in your area. I could do so many
things outdoors if I wanted to. I just hate the jungle.
I got you. I got you.
I mean, hey, I could throw some poplin carpets in outdoors, 3/4 out of the year, and they would thrive.
Yeah.
But I was so close to picking up a $50 cryptic-looking, beautiful yellow phase Amazon tree boa at this show. It wasn't even funny. I was like, you know what? I might go back for that thing for hours after I left.
Sure.
And that was so stupid of me. But I can guarantee you that there was a half dozen of those things at this specific table. Well, there was 10 or 12 tables. They took up 15% of this expo. It's a very small expo, so that's not saying much. But I can guarantee you there was a handful of people that were there that picked up a couple of those animals, and those animals are going to die because those are finicky animals to keep, especially by amateurs or by beginners. And that's the majority of the people that are walking through this. And that doesn't really speak well necessarily for that particular vendor, because they would steer clear people who didn't have the know-how to care for those animals if they had any kind of conscience. But those were also the same vendor that were selling prairie dogs, that were selling
you can get prairie dogs?
Apparently they had over a dozen prairie dogs there.
That'd be cool,
$65 a pop, baby.
Just don't get the plague.
Exactly.
Well, the plague part sucks.
Hey,
come on.
Hey.
Just make sure they don't have fleas. You'll be all right.
But
always the virologist.
And that kind of leads me to another thing. You think of Reptile Expos as a place where, hey, maybe I can get this for a little bit cheaper. I'm going to save on shipping, and, they might also, kind of cut me a discount since they're bringing it here. And
Don't you think that's true, though? I mean,
I
good
used
doctor,
to.
wouldn't you say that you've sold some stuff a little bit cheaper just at the show so you didn't have to take it home?
I used to. But now in this new world, man, it seems different, because I saw an emerald swift that was obviously wild caught adult, and it was $90. Now, I can guarantee you that's a $25 animal all day. A wild caught.
Okay.
And this is the same table. Tons of animals. There was a couple. They actually had a couple of carpets. They had, and I was surprised that they called them Papuan carpet pythons. But they were plain Jane and not very pretty. Which, I mean, granted, no carpets are when they're born, but $4.50 a pop. I was like, that's a little steep, when I could go to.
I thought you were just talking about poplin carpets in general.
Well, when I can go to, say,
Sorry, Podfather. Sorry.
I know I can go to Inland Reptile and get a beautiful lineage traced poplin carpet python, just normal, for under $300. Around $300 to $350 shipped.
Sure.
With that reputation. So, you think about these things. And then I saw another one where it was Brisbane carpet pythons. And I was like, that's a little weird, because those look like straight up just coastal carpet pythons. And they're $4.50 a pop. So dealing with the dishonesty of people that are trying to make a quick buck is pretty bad to deal with, because you can buy a booth for what, $10 to $20, $30, double booth under $50, triple booth, less than $100, and you're going to come out.
Those Brisbanes may have been legit, man.
Huh?
Those Brisbanes may have been legit.
It's possible.
I mean, it
is possible.
Yeah.
The lady didn't seem so understanding about what was going on when I started trying to talk. You can usually
find out pretty quick.
Yeah, when I was trying to talk genetics with her, it was kind of over her head like an airplane.
Was that her booth, or was it like her husband's?
No, she was the one running it. However, it was strange, though. I will say, for a pro, even though I'm not supposed to be espousing pros for this argument, there was a guy that was actually part of the Repticon, I guess, coalition that was running the front desk for admissions. He kind of went behind there and was helping with her, because she had a huge table and not a lot of help. And there was a lot of people, gathering around. I went I went up to the admissions desk to kind of get stamped to go in, and I was like, "How's it looking there? You see anything from Australia?" Da 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 da. And he's like, "Oh well, yeah, there's a little bit here and there. I actually breed Argus monitors." Oh no shit. That was my first passion, was monitors. Like I remember seeing like a Komodo dragon take down water, like an oxen and a bison, and just wait for it to fall down before it ate it alive when I was a child on National Geographic, and that was like, oh my god, oh I love it. It just enthralled me. This animal of like supreme predatorship.
It's an apex predator.
Absolutely, and even though you could walk up to it with a shovel and kill it, it's like it reigns supreme in its little atmosphere. But he was saying, hey, yeah, I breed Argus monitors, and show me some pictures. Oh, okay, you have a booth up here, or somebody that's working a booth for? No. I was like, okay, you work, Morph Market or anything like it? No, not really. I was like, okay, do you ship? He's like, yeah, I could ship. And I got his information from him. And I was like, that's kind of that's another one of those double-edged swords where it's like, man, some of these people that are really invested in some of these species which I'm not saying, beginners or even intermediate people need to be purchasing an Argus monitor, because that's a bedroom space type species. But, I met somebody that was interested in breeding a species that I'm really interested in.
Sure.
That wasn't necessarily...
And that's exactly to my point of why I think at reptile expos are
absolutely
awesome. Because you can go and just find somebody that you never met and all of a sudden now whenever you see that person at any reptile, you'd be like, hey, it's Argus guy. What's up, man? How's your Argus
I can guarantee you, like, you've hit, like, again, like I said, I had like 17 points for pros and 17 pros for cons, and you've hit every single one of the pros. And I agree with you 100%. Like, I was like, man, this is awesome. Why don't you see that? Because I sure as hell saw a lot of Nile monitors.
Sure.
And I can guarantee you that there were a lot of people that walked out of that thing thinking, oh, look at this cute little lizard. And I can guarantee you that those sellers, those vendors who are selling a mass majority of diverse wild type species aren't necessarily letting those parents know that, hey, this thing could be a killing machine in like 3 years, And maybe that's because there aren't like responsible keepers around. Maybe it's because there aren't people like me that aren't saying, hey, don't do that shit.
I mean, I've got a triple L near my house, and that's my kind of local reptile shop. I know all those guys in there real well. I'm in there regularly getting bugs for geckos and stuff, and we talk. And I mean, well, I'm trying not to say that that's carte blanche. Those guys do a really, really good job of steering people away. Of like, I don't think that's a good decision, and here's why. I think.
Well, I guess I would say, why are they selling it then? Because professional keepers aren't going to buy those.
Because there is a market for those. There are people who keep those. There's people who keep caiman and crocodilian. Is that in every person's species? No, absolutely not. Right. Should it be in an absolutely correct environment by the right owner? Yes, 100%. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't, that they shouldn't be produced, or that, that's an off limits thing. It just needs to be, to the right home. And I think anybody who produces crocodilian is very, 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 very conscious of that. Just like I think pet shops now, because they don't want the animals back, are very conscious of where those animals are going. Now, can that happen? Sure, it can happen. But I think a far more, positive way to think about this, and especially some of those big tables like Triple L who do a lot of importing, is that, you used to never see captive bred tree monitors, but now you see them all the time. Well, why is that? Because there's people who went to those tables bought those wild caughts, rehabbed them up, got them going, and learned how to breed them. And then now we have, they took a cue from the Europeans on how to do it, and they put in the work, and now we have, a bunch of people breeding captive bred tree monitors of the different species. So it's, I think, there's always an easy example of the negative. And as somebody who's bred, something that's imported and rare, somebody has to do it. And yes, there's a cost. There's a cost to importation, and not everybody who buys it is going to be successful with it. And hopefully everybody networks and learns from each other's failures, and the only positives of social media help us do that. But I think to look at importation, as a net negative is probably not the right way to do it.
Oh, and I definitely don't. I think, and let's look at this discrepancy in price between a tree monitor, a green tree or black tree monitor, and a Nile monitor. You're talking about a $50 animal versus a $1,000 animal.
Well, I mean,
that's the challenge, of course. Of
sure,
true, and it's a lot easier.
Stop importing those, they're going to go way
right.
Up
and I'm sure it's a lot easier
to
capture a land, roaming monitor as a Nile monitor.
Sure.
A lot easier than something that's so much more shy and quick and up in the trees. And I love, the majority of the species that I'm interested in now are something that I'd have to, deal with being wild caught. Or if not, extremely expensive. One of my bucket list species is a Spalaroselphus atroceps, the royal black-headed snake, which is almost non-existent in the hobby in the U.S. I think there's maybe like 3 guys that are maybe 2 now. I emailed a guy a few months back. That was probably about a year back now. Hey, I saw like a little page on him. Hey, what's going on with this and that? And he's like, well, I don't really breed those guys anymore, but there's another guy that breeds them that I know of in New York. And I was like, okay, I typed his name in, and sure as shit, something popped up on MorphMark, and I looked at it, and it's like, oh, it's a long time coming. It's a really rare opportunity to catch this female, captive bred female, $2,100. Oh shit, But
sure.
or even like less expensive species. I'm really interested in Hypsiglena torquata, the desert night snake from America.
Yeah.
An 18-inch
There's a lot of
snake.
overlooked species for sure.
And I have no problem with wild reptiles. Absolutely not. I just think that maybe I don't necessarily think that there's a con to reptile expos. I think that there's maybe philosophically, I have problems with the way people conduct themselves, which is, obvious to anybody that deals with people on a regular basis.
Yeah, I was going to say, philosophically, I have a problem with people. Yeah, that's why I'm known as the get off my lawn co-host.
No shit, I'm right there with you, man. I can't wait until I'm old and senile so I can flip people off, and not be put.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think obviously there's it's a nuanced thing. There's a lot of different aspects to reptile shows, and a lot of things that we shouldn't be doing at shows and that people do. And but for the most part, I think people try to conduct themselves. I mean, obviously, if you're going to mess up your own market, you're not going to have a market anymore. So you probably want to be responsible. So, and how many adult Niles are out there of all these juveniles that are being sold?
Oh, I can guarantee you most of them are dead.
When we value animals based on their dollar amount rather than just the fact that they're living, breathing, amazing things. Like Nile monitors are freaking cool.
Hell yeah. I would love awesome to have Nile monitors if I had the space to provide for them.
And so, we need to try to minimize those negative effects and maximize the good stuff. But this has been a great discussion. I'm gonna have to. We're going on almost 2 hours, so we'll cut it off here.
I apologize. I rambled.
Well, no, it's all good. No, good discussions for sure. And I apologize for ditching out here and there.
No, you're
during
fine,
the podcast,
man. You have
so I missed some.
Worthy
I'll have to go back
excuse.
and listen
I hope your wife's doing all right. And
Oh yeah, she's doing all right. But yeah, I'm gonna fail here quick. But well, thanks again, Myles, for coming on. And fighting with us. So that was a lot of fun, and thanks for all the support from the Morelia Pythons Network and for the Podfather. Check out all their stuff on social media and all the good stuff. But also check out us. I'm Australian Addiction Reptiles, Justin Julander, and Chuck. You want to throw out your information?
No,
we don't really do that, right?
I mean, you can. I'm Chuck Norris Wins on Instagram, and Chuck Poland on Facebook. I'm kind of working on a website, but I'm not ready to talk about that or anything. It's been so. I just need to get on it. You know how your personal website thing can drag on. So
I did update my website with information on the new carpet book. So if you want to do a pre-order, shoot me an email. The details are found on my website, australianaddiction.com. But yeah, well, we appreciate you listening, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of Reptile Fight Club.
All right, for the doctor, Chuck, and Ruby, we love you, Pete Call. Peace out.
Fight Club.